But when you do a house hack, you're looking at returns of 100% or more on your net worth because, with real estate, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, you have all of the wealth generators of real estate, which are cash flow, loan pay
Yeah.
down, appreciation, and all the tax benefits.
You're listening to the We Love Equity Real Estate Show, a podcast that discusses the intricacies of real estate investing with your host, Marcus E. Maloney. Marcus is a real estate investor best known for being the equity king. He's been awarded that moniker because he and his team find amazing real estate deals. He will be talking with investors who have done some transformational things in the real estate industry. They'll discuss their process, their strategies, and how their investments transform their lives and the communities they invest in. We welcome you to the We Love Equity Real Estate Show.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the We Love Equity Real Estate Show. And today I have a very special guest, which is Craig Curelop. He is AKA the FIGY. He's an aggressive pursuer of financial independence. Starting with a net worth of negative $30K in 2016, he has aggressively saved and invested to become financially independent now in 2019. From sleeping on a couch and renting out his car, he was able to invest in 2 houses, Denver, and now I can say 3, which we'll step into and talk about, and a BRRRR in Jacksonville. He plans to continue to invest in both Denver and Jacksonville for years to come. Craig's story has caught the attention of several media outlets, including the Denver Post, the BCC, and many other real estate professional finance podcasts. He hopes to inspire the masses to grab hold of their finances and achieve financial independence. You can also follow his story on Instagram at thefiguy, and we will definitely get into that. So Craig, man, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Marcus. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, man. So I really got inspired by your story because you write articles for Bigger Pockets, as do I. And I was just kind of finding some material to read one day when I was in my own little private chambers and came across one of your articles, and it was just talking about how you transitioned from being massively in debt to now being financially free and doing it all on the back of real estate. So, you know what, before we get started, everyone has a backstory. So tell me, how did you get so far in debt, and what made you think about getting into real estate?
So, I think a lot of people my age suffered from kind of the student loans, right? I went to a very expensive school in Boston, and, I graduated with over $90,000 of debt. And I figured, I'm going to have a good paying job that I'm going to pay that off someday anyway. So basically going into college, I had no even idea as to like the effects of debt later on in life. And so, I just was like, I'm going to the best possible school. It'll pay off no matter what, without even thinking about the money side of it. So I went to the school and, graduated, did all that good stuff, graduated with a finance degree, and moved out to California with $90,000 of negative net worth to my name in 2015.
Ouch.
So,
And
yeah.
that is the trap that kind of traps us all. We're all taught, hey, go to school, get a degree, get a good job, work for 40 years, and then spend the last 10 to 15 years of your life enjoying life. But they fail to mention that you get strapped down with so much financial student loan debt. And I'm pretty sure the majority of our listeners here are kind of dealing with the same thing. So tell me, why real estate?
So basically when I was in California, right, I progressed on and I was in the finance world and I just absolutely hated my job out there. And basically I was looking up ways to figure out how I can retire early. And I basically came across Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek.
Gotcha.
And that book basically says, hey, you need a passive stream of recurring income. And so being in Silicon Valley, I was like, okay, what startup ideas can I come up with? And I just came up with like the dumbest ideas. We won't get into that. But eventually, after trial and error, I stumbled upon real estate when I was thinking, okay, like why do I have to reinvent the wheel? Real estate works has worked for generations and generations. So rather than try to be, the next Mark Zuckerberg, I'm just going to be, your regular old Craig Curelop and just buy real estate. And so with that in mind, I felt like I came across Bigger Pockets, started learning as much as I could. And, I basically stumbled upon this whole financial independence thing in probably about August of 2016.
Okay.
And, I had my first property. I moved to Denver and bought my first property in June of 2017, which is the Duplex.
Okay. Okay.
And we can get into that, or if you had any other questions on that part of my life.
Oh, let's dive right into this Duplex. So your inspiration really came from reading, reading, listening to podcasts on Bigger Pockets, things like that. And you said, hey, you know what? I'm smart. I have a finance degree. Why try and reinvent the wheel? Let me do this real estate thing. So with your move from California to Denver, tell me, how did you find this Duplex?
So I moved to Denver. I got a month-to-month lease, and basically the first thing I did when I got there was just meet with a bunch of agents, and I got it right off the MLS. Like all of my properties that I've gotten, completely off the MLS. It was an up-down duplex, 1 bed, 1 bath, about 5 blocks north of City Park, which, if you don't know Denver, is the largest park in Denver.
Hot area.
And it's a good area. It's an up-and-coming gentrifying area. So, when I first bought the property, it was wasn't super shady, but it was kind of shady.
Okay.
And but now, it's clearly growing. There's developments going in all around it. Scrapes and rebuilds going in. So I'm very happy to have a property in that area, and to buy a duplex for just $385,000 at that time seems like it was a pretty good deal.
So with the $30,000 in debt, moving from California to Denver, how did you finance this property?
So I did the FHA loan, 3.5% down FHA. I had about, I want to say like 30 to 40,000 in savings at the time. And so, I've always been a saver. So my whole life I've been saving while working. I've been saving and all of that. And so, a couple years after graduate, I had about $40,000 in cash.
Okay.
And I used a total of, the down payment plus closing costs and all that. My total down payment into the deal was $17,000. And it was a brand new property. So it didn't need any rehab, didn't need any work. So it was just $17,000, move-in ready, nothing else to do.
Wow. It's always good to find a good deal.
Yeah.
That was smart on your part, especially being a finance guy, because some people will say, you know what, I got $30,000, $40,000 saved up. I have this $30,000, $40,000 student loan debt. Let me pay off this debt so I can be debt free, and then start looking for the duplex or the rental property. You did it in a total reverse way, and you still came out on top. So it's good that you had that mindset to not to get out of debt first, but find another way or another resource that can help me get out of debt.
So I looked at the interest rate on my student loans, which were, I had a bunch of them. So the blended rate was between 5 and 6%, right? But when you do a house hack, you're looking at returns of 100% or more on your net worth, because, with real estate, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, you have all of the wealth generators of real estate, which are cash flow, loan pay down, appreciation, and all the tax benefits. And so with that, I put down $17,000, and I made, well over $17,000 in that next year, which has allowed me to buy another property. And so you kind of like, you have that snowball effect, which allows you to pay down the student loans way quicker, but you just get started a little bit later.
Hey, man, and that's the thing. Like you said, that snowball effect, you take a little bit of money and you help that little bit of money, turn over, keep turning that same dollar amount over. So in regards to that duplex, how fearful were you, starting to find a tenant, getting ready to rent it out? Kind of let's go down that road and go down that process.
Yeah, man, I was scared out of my mind. I had never had a payment coming I had never invested that much money in my life. I had never had a monthly bill of, the bill was a little over $2,000. So I'd never had a bill that high in my life. And, I had a lot of runway, but still I didn't want to waste all my runway on this because I wanted to continue doing it. So, I think that scared mindset also helped me get what I want really quick.
Gotcha.
So
with So how did you find your tenant? Let's kind of dig into that.
Yeah, so I rented up the upstairs. I found my tenant by basically putting it in as many putting an ad up in as many places as possible. Right. The only thing I can't control whether people want to live there or not. The only thing I can possibly control is how many places it's listed. And so my like metric that I would go off of is how many places can I list this. So I would go on Craigslist. You can go on to this thing called Postlets, which
Yep.
you create one ad and it exports all the ads to Trulia, Zillow, Realtor, HotPads, all these different sites. You got Facebook Marketplace. You have all of these different resources. So I was just trying to get it on many platforms as possible to get as many eyes on it as possible to, increase the funnel.
Yeah, and that's very smart, because the more places you put it out there, the more opportunities and the more tenants you get a chance to vet. So being that this is a new venture, you've never owned a house, you're doing a house hack, never screened a tenant. What did you do to screen your tenant once the phone started ringing?
Yeah, so the screening process, I always knew based on all of my research that this is kind of where you're at, like your most vulnerability
Yep.
and where you need to be the most picky is with your tenant screening. And so I would have them fill out an application on this site called cozy.co. And I
Yep.
don't get paid for mentioning them at all. I love them. So, yeah, they're great. But as part of that application, they fill out the best they can. They give you all the references, how much they make, all that stuff. I asked them to upload the last 2 pay stubs. I asked them to do a background check and credit check to make sure that those are above my, that there's no criminal background, and credit check is above my qualifications. And they have references on there, so I would make sure to call their references, past landlords, and their job to make sure they actually have a job. And if that all checks out and was all good, we decided to move forward. I also meet them face to face because I feel like I've got a pretty good judge of character. So when I meet someone face to face, it really helps me, I guess, get a good feel for them and whether or not they'd be good tenants.
Yeah, that's perfect. Hey, I use Cozy also. And for everybody, that's cozy.co. So cozy.co. Right. And you can use them for all your tenant screening, management tools and everything like that. So, so you started getting these applications in, you started meeting these people. What made you pick the person that you picked?
I guess. Well, I guess they were the first person that came to me that met all of my criteria and that liked the place. And
Okay.
so, right, that's kind of you have to be careful with a lot of like the discrimination laws and stuff. And so I always go by first inquiry in the inbox that meets my criteria is the one that gets the spot.
Okay.
So it was a nice couple that, works not far from the duplex. So it was a great setup.
Yeah, and that is true. You have to watch out for those discrimination laws because, when you're screening tenants, it's easy for someone to just go out and say, hey, what, I applied for this rental and I was denied, and I'm not sure why I was denied. I was maybe denied for, because of my gender, my, racial makeup, whatever, so on and so forth. So you definitely have to be mindful of that. I was going to ask you something in regards to the duplex. Oh, I know what it was. So are you a little fearful about managing this yourself, or did it ever cross your mind to use a property manager?
Well, so it was a house hack, right? So I was going to be living there. And so
Yep.
I didn't think it made any sense at all to have a property manager because I was going to be there. That was my home anyway. So no, it didn't cross my mind. Managing it seemed like the easiest part because once I got someone in there, a matter of just, calling a handyman when things break is very easy. I just made sure I had kind of my team lined up. So if the plumbing broke, I had a plumber, all this stuff. And so I knew who to call when anything happened.
Okay.
But again, it was a new place, so I didn't really have many problems.
Yeah, that's good. So, were you nervous about, living downstairs and your tenant living upstairs? And just that dynamic of you being a little bit too close, I know for me, I like that degree of separation, so how
Yeah.
did you navigate your way through that?
I guess I just I didn't really care. So with the up-down duplex, right, there was a lot of noise coming from the top to the bottom unit. So I remember like one of my first nights there. So in my bottom unit, I was actually Airbnb-ing out my bedroom, and I put up like a curtain and a room divider in the living room and made like a quasi bedroom out of my living room. And I slept on a futon behind that for a year. So I remember like, yeah, I remember that first night of doing that, and I remember like having an Airbnb guest in my bedroom, and they were like talking, and having people move in upstairs making a lot of noise, and I was just like tucked into a little corner of my living room behind a curtain. I was like, "What am I doing?" Like, what the hell? But that was really one of the only times that I was real, and it was just because I wasn't used to it, right? But once
Right.
I got used to it, it kind of became cool. Airbnb guests were coming in and out, and I've actually have a lot of friendships that they started as my Airbnb guests, and we're still friends to this day.
Wow.
And just a lot of cool people traveling in and out. Like I love to travel, so that kind of satisfied my travel bug while I was home. So it sounds crazy, and most people say like most people think I'm nuts for living on my couch in a living room for a year. But man, I actually really enjoyed it looking back on it.
Well, you were being resourceful, man, because you knew, hey, I have a goal. My goal is to get out of debt. And right now, while I have this opportunity, I'm going to do as much as I can to maximize this opportunity so I can accelerate, my financial independence. So I know you were thinking you were crazy sleeping behind, a curtain and balled up in the corner of this $300,000 property that you bought, but the income was coming in. So were you living for free, or did you have to pay anything on the mortgage, or?
No, so I was living totally for free. Basically, the way the numbers worked out was that I was getting like 1750 for the top unit, and I was getting about 1100 for the Airbnb on average. And
Okay.
so you're looking at about $2,800 of total rent, and my mortgage payment was just over $2,000. So I was making 800 bucks over the mortgage, and I was living for free. And so I always set aside some for reserves. It was a newer property,
Yep.
so I set aside $250 for reserves. There's not much vacancy in this area in Denver, so that was like my reserve fund.
Okay.
And I'm cash flowing. What is that, like 550 or 650 bucks a month, um,
And that
and
was
and free.
and that was being applied to. Now, was that being applied to your student loans, or?
Nope, not yet. So
Okay.
not yet. I was still making the minimum payments on my student loans, because I thought that basically the way I looked at it was I don't want anything to impede me from getting another house hack next year, because that is the best return I can possibly get on my money. And if I'm going to pay off my student loans and it's going to make me kick out another house hack a year, that's actually doing me an injustice rather than helping
Yep.
me out. And
Absolutely.
so I didn't feel comfortable paying off my student loans yet, so I continued to just save that money. I did a couple extra side hustles. I rented out my car. I rented out. I rented an apartment from my friend, who I then Airbnb'd out, which I then Airbnb'd out. So I was paying my friend rent while Airbnbing out and keeping the difference. So some side hustles that way.
Man, so nothing was safe around you. You was like, hey, I'll rent you anything.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was bad for a year. But I just figured like one year,
Yep.
1 year I gotta just like, I was like balls to the wall, 1 year, go at it. And then second year I started to ease up a little bit, right? I bought my second house, which this one was a 5-bed, 2-bath house just outside of Denver in a town called Thornton.
Okay.
And this one I had my own room. I lived in one room and I rented out the other four. Uh, and my mortgage payment was still about 2,000 on this one as well, and I was making about 3,100 in rent from the other four rooms.
So you
So
have the duplex that's bringing you in about 28. Well, actually, right
yeah,
now more because you
right,
rented out the bottom floor. So the
yep.
duplex, what were you bringing in total on a duplex when you moved out?
Um, with the Airbnb, it'll probably be it's a little over 3,000, so we'll say like 3,300.
Okay, so
Um,
3,300 on a duplex, and your mortgage was just a little bit over 2,000. So you're clearing,
yeah,
let's just say, just for the sake of round numbers, 1,300 bucks off that one property. Now you bought this 5-bed house for how much did you pay for that one?
This one was 343,
Okay.
but the interest rates were a bit higher at that time, so it ended up being about almost exactly the same. Like it was like $40 off from my other one, so 2,000 on that one as well.
Okay, so we're $2,000 at that one. Now go over this room sharing, room renting thing that you're doing.
Yeah, so this was just like a kind of a. I got this from my friend who was doing a similar strategy, and so you buy a property, right? You want kind of the most rooms and most bathrooms for your dollar is what the idea of what you want, and so you buy the 5-bed, 2-bath, single family home. You live in one room, pick whatever room you want,
Mhm.
and you rent out the other rooms. Now, a master bedroom will be a little bit more than a regular bedroom. If you've got a private entrance bedroom or you've got like a garage attached to it, that will go for a little bit more. You can rent out, the garage parking or driveway parking or whatever, and kind of just get the most investment you can on that single property. And so, with all that, I was getting on average about $700 for the smaller rooms, and then I had one with a master bathroom and one with like a private entrance garage, and I was getting 800 and 850 for that one, for those two. So,
Wow.
yeah, sorry,
So
I'm going fast, but it was like, I think 3150 in total rent for uh, the 4 rooms.
wow. Okay, so you were clearing some major cash flow. So you were clearing about $2,400 a month, um, just with these two properties.
Right.
Wow. And and guys, you really have to look at that. And you really have to think like Craig and be resourceful and say, hey, you know what? I may not have a lot, but what I do have, what can I do with this to maximize it? So that's awesome. That's awesome, Craig. So now you're 2 properties in. Wait, we still have the rental from your partner, right?
Yeah. The Airbnb.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
what you- Yep. And I've also got, so that was a huge help in helping me pay down my student loans. And that was kind of the main reason why I wanted that was, so I had this Airbnb. It was in a great location in like basically downtown Denver. And he was charging me 2250, I think, a month to rent the place out. And I would get, in the winter it would be right around break even, around 2250, but in the summer it was getting like 4 grand a month, right?
Wow.
And so we were like netting almost 2 grand over
On
that rent
on the
payment
months.
a month. And so that was for a few months a year, and
Okay.
so that was huge, helping me out. And it was pretty close to my work too, so I could just like, if I ever needed anything, I would just hop on my bike and head over there over
Home.
lunch.
So
Yeah.
you're working a full-time job. You have the duplex that you house hack. Then you're living in a house hack, and then you're Airbnb um, an apartment that you're renting from a friend, and now you're moving into this third house hack that you just told me about, man. Kind of let's go over that one now.
Yeah. So I'm not so just to preface, I'm no longer doing the Airbnb with my friend. That got shut down
Okay.
because
What
he had an
happened?
HOA.
What
Yeah.
happened, man?
So it was a condo, and he had an HOA that didn't like that we were Airbnbing it.
Oh,
So they shut the doors on us, and we said, okay, like we're not trying to get on anyone's bad side. So we shut it down, and it was good while it lasted, but that was that. So that was over, and
and
then
that's not to
sorry.
cut you off, Craig. Let me jump in
Nope.
here real quick. And I know
Yep.
Airbnb is the trend. I actually just came from Chicago, and I was talking to a group, and they were talking about doing some Airbnb and some high rises. And I said, hey, you definitely got to check with the HOA, because you can have this business strategy that you want to use, but if you don't check the CC&Rs with the HOA, you could buy this property and then not be able to do what you intended to do with it. So, man, good for you guys. You milked it as long as you could. Uh,
Yeah.
so, hey, at
Gotta
least
bend the rules a little
money.
bit, right? Yeah.
Did your buddy, did he let you out the lease, or?
Oh yeah, so it was we agreed in the beginning. It was like a month-to-month lease. We said, hey, if for any reason this thing needs to be shut down outside of like our circumstances, like if there's a third party or an outstanding force that makes us shut this thing down, it's like the next month it's shut down and we're good to go. So we were on the same page with that,
Okay.
and he totally understood. So yeah, I was paying him above market rent, and I was also giving him a little bit of the upside as well. So
Okay.
it was beneficial for him too.
Yeah, so you guys really had just a working agreement, on it. So, okay,
Exactly.
perfect.
Yeah.
So, number 3, house hack number 3. Let's dig into it.
Yeah, so this is the most recent one, and this is the one I'm most excited about because it's happening now. So this one is a 6-bed, 3-bath house a couple miles south of the one in Thornton, which is basically on this Denver-Thornton border. It's actually not in Denver or Thornton. It's technically like an unincorporated county. It's just
Okay.
unincorporated county is what they call it. So I don't have like all of the strict Airbnb rules that Denver applies, or like all of these. I don't have to follow those rules, and I pay a lot less in taxes, which is nice.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Your tax basis is lower because it's unincorporated. Perfect.
Yep. Exactly. And so this one is it's a 3-bed, 2-bath upstairs, and it's a 3-bed, 1-bath downstairs, and the downstairs has its own kitchen, its own laundry room. So it's basically like a separate unit, but it's not like it's basically a non-conforming or like a legal duplex.
Okay.
And so what I'm doing now is that I rented the two top. I'm living in the top, in one of the like crappier rooms, and I'm renting out the master bedroom and the other no frills room, on a yearly basis, like a normal tenant.
Okay.
And what I'm doing is I'm actually renovating the basement. So the basement is it feels a little bit like a dungeon. There's not a whole lot of natural light, and it's just not. It just really wasn't. It was maintained, but just doesn't feel that good. So I'm actually renovating the entire basement. So I've got some extra cash now because I've been house hacking for a couple years and I'm still saving and I haven't really increased my lifestyle much. So with
Okay.
that extra money I have, I'm renovating the basement. I'm going to probably do a 20 or 30 grand renovation to make it look all new and modern and make it a little bit more comforting, despite the fact that there's not much natural light. Redoing the kitchen, and I'm going to actually make that an Airbnb. I'm going to wall off basically the doorway that connects the upstairs from the
Upstairs.
downstairs,
Okay.
and there's basically a separate entrance into the downstairs to the garage. So
So it's
that's
going
going
to
to
be
be
a separate unit.
separate unit Airbnb, and I'm going to try to bleed that out for as long as I can.
Okay.
And at some point, I may, what I love about this property is that it's super flexible, right? I can make it an Airbnb. I can rent out the bottom unit separately, or I could rent it out by the room separately.
Yeah,
There's just
it's multifaceted. You got different
yeah.
exit strategies with it. So again, with the financing with this one, how much did you pay for this one? Because I know Denver price points have shot up tremendously, but this one is unincorporated. So did you find was this a deal for you?
So I don't think I got like a screaming deal on this one. I purchased it for $380,000. I think that's pretty much exactly what it's worth.
Okay.
But like with the strategy that I'm using, right, with this rent by the room strategy / Airbnb, like it's almost like no way it's not going to cash flow
Cash
me like
flow.
crazy, right? So I'm okay with paying market price. If market price works for me, I'm okay with paying it. I'm not trying to like screw the seller over for
Right.
$10,000 or $20,000, right? I'm not going to let a deal go by for that. I'd rather just get into a deal. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
And that's the thing, everybody says, you make the money on the buy side, which is true. But at the same time, if your exit strategy or your strategy is to hold long term, you can pay market or even a little bit above market because your goal is the passive income, the cash flow. So over the years, like you said, you're going to get the debt pay down, you're going to get the tax incentives and tax benefits plus the cash flow. So, you don't have to always jump out there and try and find something 70 cents on a dollar, 60 cents on a dollar just to make it work. As long as again, it depends on your strategy, and your strategy is passive income. So, man, kudos
exactly.
to you on this.
Yeah, and with the basement renovation too, I think that I'll be able to, force some appreciation into that. So
Gotcha. So you're
yeah.
doing all of this with a full-time job. How many hours a day are you really putting into managing this stuff?
So it's a lot of upfront managing. When I'm looking to rent the rooms and do all that, it's probably It's probably about 10 hours a week.
Gotcha.
In
So,
terms of, I probably do a couple I do when I do my showings, I'll schedule a 2-hour window and I'll just say, hey, it's like an open house type deal. Just come by in this 2-hour window and I'll show you the house. And it's weird that no one ever shows up at the same time. I can't explain.
yeah.
I can't explain that. I've never had two people show up at the same time, and it. I don't know. It just works really nicely. And
So,
so then I'm still. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. You can finish.
So it's not like. So I'm not really like even in the downtime in that 2 hours, I'm doing other work or whatever. Like it's not. I don't even. I shouldn't even count that as part of the hours that I'm working on the real estate stuff. And then creating the listing and getting the Airbnb set up is it probably takes about a week or so to get an Airbnb set up for me.
So not much management.
No, after once it's all said and done, you get your systems in place. It's you kind of sit back and things come up, but it's not much.
So what additional systems are you using? I know you're using Cozy for your traditional tenants. You using just strictly Airbnb for your properties, or is there another system you're using?
So with the Airbnb thing, I actually use this thing called. So I use two different resources. I use Price Labs, which is a third-party pricing software for Airbnb.
Wow. Okay.
The reason why I don't do the Airbnb smart pricing is that it's way too low. This Price Labs actually will look at like other Airbnbs in the area, look at other events happening in the area, and basically say, hey, like you can charge this much this night, and they'll just like automatically set that price for you. And I get way more than I would ever charge sometimes, and sometimes it's a little bit less. But you can set your minimums and maximums as you'd like, and it works. I get almost every night booked.
Okay, so that's basically comps for Airbnb, huh?
Yeah, exactly. They pull the comp. They do it for you. It's great. You don't do anything with setting the pricing. And the second service I use is called Smart B&B, and they do all the automatic messaging, all of the reviews, all of that stuff. So it's called Smart B&B.
Okay, Smart B&B.
Yep, and they do all of the, a welcome message, and it tells them how to get in and out of the property. It tells them the house rules in the message, and basically try to answer all their questions before they have the questions.
Gotcha.
And this basically does that for you. It also does question recognition. So if there's a question that you get asked a lot, for example, I always get asked about parking. I'll have like a response to a parking question, and they'll automatically send that response to the tenant immediately.
Okay.
And it works great. It works about 75% of the time. Sometimes it doesn't work, but better than nothing.
Always good to have systems in place. That way you can minimize, your time actually doing the work. So now what about the turnover? Dealing with these Airbnbs, I know it can be a nightmare sometimes turning over the properties. Are you doing this yourself, or are you hiring this out? What are you doing?
So when I lived there, I did it myself because it was just my home.
Gotcha.
And I learned that I am not a good cleaner. So once I moved out, I hired a cleaning lady who actually, it was funny. I was driving for Uber a little bit here and there, and I actually was when I was driving for Uber, I found a cleaning lady that was my Uber client or whatever, my Uber passenger, and that's how I got my cleaning lady, and she's great. Like I love her. She almost feels like my grandmother to me. Like,
so how did that conversation start? Hey, I'm your Uber driver. Do you clean houses?
Basically, no. I asked her. I asked her what she does and all that stuff. She's like, "Oh, I clean Airbnbs." I'm like, "Oh, well, I've got an Airbnb, and I'm looking for a cleaner." And so we were chatting and we had a good conversation, and then I decided I'd try her out. Yeah, and I just set her up as a co-host on my Airbnb account, and she can just look at my calendar and see exactly when the turnover is and when she's got to go in. She restocks everything for me, just sends me the receipt, and I send her the payment. It's great. Okay. It's great. Yeah, I couldn't do it without her.
That's important. That's important, guys. In real estate, as we always say, it's network driven. You got to have people in place. And just by telling people what you do and what you're looking for, because we do a group every other Sunday, and we start with wants, needs, and haves. What do I have? what do I need and what do I want? And by doing that, we can merge things together and merge people together, and make it a little bit easier for people to go down their journey, as a real estate investor. So that's basically what you did with the Airbnb cleaning person is, hey, I'm your Uber driver. What do you do?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
just from that conversation, you built a partnership, basically.
Yep.
So
Yep. People you tell people. The more people you tell what you do, the more likely they'll help you out, because people always want to help people out.
that's
So
true.
it's in our nature. So yeah.
So tell me now, was the majority of your financing just strictly bank financing, or did you use any hard money or anything like that?
Nope, no hard money. It's all been bank financing, 5% down conventional, 5% down conventional for the two single family houses, and the 3.5% down FHA. And it's been worked out. It's working out great. I found a lender that I really like, and he gets my deals done. I know that I can do up to 10 mortgages with him, all owner occupied, and I've referred him out to a whole bunch of people as well, and he's been great. So I'm very happy with him.
So nothing earth shattering, nothing amazing. You just, hey, this is the road I want to take. I'm going to save some money. I'm going to do some traditional financing and get the passive income and turn it over. So guys, you don't have to start out, being creative, doing lease options or wholesaling or anything like that. Craig started $30K in debt and just worked and saved his money and used that money to really, really launch his real estate career. So Craig, tell me, I know you just got this property. I know you're working on it, but you seem like you're a very innovative guy. So I know you're thinking about what's next. So kind of give us, fill us in on what you're planning next.
Yeah. So one of the big things that's kind of happening in my life is that we're having a book come out actually on this whole house hacking strategy. So I work for a company called BRRRR, and BRRRR is it's publishing a book that I've written on house hacking, and basically it tells you everything you need to know about house hacking. Everything that I know about house hacking is basically funneled into these 200 and something pages. And, it talks about how you find a property, where to find a property, how to manage the tenants, how to manage the roommate side of it. Because when you're house hacking, if you're doing a single family house and that's a strategy that you may want, you have to you play two roles. You play a landlord, but you also play a roommate. So you have to kind of figure out where that line is. It just tells you about how powerful house hacking is and how you can get returns of 100% or more on basically almost every single house hack that you do if you buy the right one. There's case studies, and I've interviewed a bunch of people who have house hacked, and you'll see that the returns are similar, and it can happen over and over again, and they don't do anything special. Anyone can do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, guys, you'll be able to find that book on BRRRR. Once do you have a launch date or release date yet?
Yeah. So on October 3rd, it comes out on BRRRR. You can just go to the BRRRR store. I think there's also will be a link. It's BRRRR.com/house hacking book, I believe.
Okay.
And yeah, you'll be able to find it on there. And then it launches on Amazon and all other places on October 17th. So,
okay. Well, guys, I'll have all of that information down in the show notes. You'll be able to find that with the link for the book. And now, Craig, before we wrap up, man, tell us where we can find you. How can we get in touch with you if we need to know some more about house hacking?
Yeah, I'd say the best two places are probably Instagram. You can find me at thefiguy. So at the THE guy, FIGUI. And you can find me on BRRRR as well. Those are probably the best two places. Facebook, you can probably reach out to me too, but I might be a little slower to respond. But either way, Facebook, Instagram, or BRRRR, and those are the three best places to reach out to me.
Gotcha. So guys, all of that information will be in the show notes. You'll be able to find and contact Craig. So Craig, before we wrap up and before we leave, man, are you really excited and anticipating the BP conference that's coming up in Nashville?
Heck yeah, man. I can't wait. I'm actually fortunate enough to be one of the speakers, so I'm really excited about that. And just excited to meet everybody. I've never been to Nashville, so excited to go to Nashville. Excited to meet a bunch of the BP members, and it's gonna be a blast. There's gonna be a lot of great keynotes there as well. So highly recommend you attend if you can.
Perfect. Well, I'll be in the place, man. I'll be in the building. Ticket is already purchased. I'll be there. Definitely want to meet you personally. You as well as Brandon and the rest of the team will definitely get together and have lunch, man. So, hey,
Let's
Craig,
do it.
I appreciate it, man. I will see you in Nashville in a few weeks. And if there's nothing else, see you in Nashville.
All right, man. We'll see you in Nashville.
All right. Thanks. Thank you for listening to today's show. I picked up some great actionable items, and I'm sure you did as well. If so, let me know. You can always reach me via social media at facebook.com/MRCSMaloney, Twitter at MRCSMaloney, and of course, IG at MRCSMaloney. You can also always reach me via email at mmaloney@equityrri.com. Make sure you reach out to our guests as well. You can always find their contact information in the show notes below. If you have not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Join the family. And while you're at it, leave us a 5-star review. This is how we tell if we're providing you with what you need for your journey. If there's someone you would like for me to interview, or if there's a subject matter you would like for me to cover, please let me know. Finally, if you're looking for additional information about real estate investing, go to equityrealestateblog.com. Also, youtube.com/Marcus Maloney. Until next time, family, always enjoy the journey.